Hello and welcome to Property TV, and this is a spotlight on Malaysia. Now, for many years, people like me have been out to the Asia Pacific areas, to Hong Kong, to Singapore, to Kuala Lumpur, selling properties, but we're now experiencing a slightly change in that trend, and it's people from the UK going out, in fact, particularly to Malaysia. And to help us talk about this and talk about the opportunities that are there are Rayna Hunter, CEO of LH1 Global, Dato Leong Sir Ley, CEO and founder of Sheng Tai International. Welcome to you.
Hello.
And Dr. Stephen Teow, CEO of Sheng Tai International UK. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
So, right, ladies, the first thing I want to talk about is I want you to tell me about Malaysia.
Well, I'm a Malaysian. So Malaysia is a country which is free of natural disaster. It's beautiful.
It must be the only one in the world. But anyway, sorry.
Yes. Okay. Malaysia is situated near Singapore, and it's also very near to Indonesia. So it's a beautiful country, free of natural disaster, and summer for 365 days with the sun shining on you. That is Malaysia to me.
Please, we'll be on a plane before you can say it. Wonderful. And your particular interest is in property development. I know that you have hotels, you have residential buildings, and do you concentrate in a certain area in Malaysia?
Yes, we do mixed development, and of course, hospitality is one of our expertise. So we have condotels. So we have many different mixed developments which come around with the whole thing called the sale.
Yeah, okay. And talking off camera, I know that you're very passionate about your area, and you also take a great interest in the country's history and also its links with the UK.
Yes, yes. Well, this particular place in Malacca, which I'm developing, it's on the 14th century, it was a spice trade center. So many countries from all over the world come to that place, like UK and Portuguese, and all these were there. So it is actually at the Straits of Malacca where the west and the east meets together. So they have to travel through the straits to go to their channel to west or to east.
Okay. Well, I can remember working on a development down at Tower Bridge, and a lot of the spices from Asia used to come into the River Thames. They used to stop at Tower Bridge, and they used to be transported inland over bridges between the streets and the buildings. So, and those bridges are still there. They're listed now as part of our heritage. So
I didn't think you were that old, Stephen.
I didn't personally move the stuff myself, but
Okay.
but I tried to help. But anyway, no, that's very interesting. It's interesting to note the ties between Malaysia and the UK. I think that's very important. I think that would give any purchaser in Malaysia quite a lot of comfort to know that there are similarities. Stephanie, you're head of the UK division, so I suppose you're working very closely with Rayna on marketing of properties and educating the UK market about your products.
Yes, so we do. I wouldn't say educating, but we have the passion of sharing about the development and also promote Malaysia, which is what Dato Leong has already mentioned. It's such a beautiful country, such a beautiful place to visit, to travel and to live.
Well, sounds good. And Rayna, you're in charge of selling these properties over here. Is it a hard sell to get a new country on the agenda when people are looking abroad?
Well, that's very interesting because I think obviously UK now, I think, is actually opening borders. So we know that a lot of UK buyers actually want to look at different countries to go to for their retirement. And of course, we know the stories about Portugal, the Golden Visa, Dubai, and so on and so forth. But Malaysia is a bit of a little unsung hero because Malaysia actually has a special visa program as well to encourage people to go and live there and retire there. But I just wanted to personally sort of say that how honoured we are to have been bestowed the honour, if you like, of sort of promoting Malaysia and, of course, the sale. I mean, from our perspective, we actually got to visit Malaysia earlier this year, and so I can say that I had the honour of going to Malacca, to Kuala Lumpur. You know, Malaysia there's so much synergy with UK. I think it's an obvious next destination.
The hospitality is legendary there, isn't it, really? I can remember going there 20 years ago, and I've never been anywhere where they make you feel so welcome and really good.
Yeah, well, I think Sheng Tai International's, because obviously hoteliers as well as developers, and their hospitality is second to none. I can vouch that. I would say anyone get the opportunity to go and visit Malaysia, then they should. I mean, but the food, I came back, I mean, I must have put on pounds. Chicken rice balls, I think we had, didn't we? So, but what I loved about it was the culture is so diverse, and yet there's so many Western flavours within Malaysia as well as Eastern flavours. So it really is, Dato says, East meets West,
Sure.
Very much so.
Sure. Okay, well, let's just drill down into some of the subjects that our viewers are going to be interested in, particularly if they have an interest in buying abroad. I guess this acceptance of new horizons is partially because of Brexit, because up until 2 or 3 years ago, you could buy in France easily, you could buy in Germany or anywhere you want, Spain, Portugal, so easy. But now they are restricted destinations, if you take that sort of description of them. And so it actually doesn't make a lot of difference, except for a couple of hours extra on the plane, whether you're going to Malaysia or whether you're going to Paris or Madrid, does it?
No, correct.
It's forcibly opened up the world to us, really. And I think this is part of the psyche of being able to promote new areas, I think.
Well, it's ironic that you say that, because of course I mentioned Portugal, you also mentioned European destinations. Well, we know because of Brexit now, anyone from UK can only actually spend 90 nights in those regions. But of course with Malaysia, I mean, I believe, Stephanie, that if they just invest a certain amount of money, then they can purchase a property. And of course, that opens the door to what, 5-year visa, 10-year visa?
Yes, that is a program which we call MM2H.
Yeah.
Make Malaysia your second home. So that is a visa that encourages investor from overseas to invest in Malaysia, but also allows them to use the money they invest in Malaysia to spend on properties.
Sure. Okay, well, we'll come to visas in a minute or two. First of all, I want to talk about, are there any particular hotspots in Malaysia that you're promoting or seem to be popular?
Well, that's very interesting. I mean, Malaysia is probably multifaceted. So you have Kuala Lumpur, where Sheng Tai International actually have properties. So Kuala Lumpur is really the city and the hub. And of course, probably most people would know it exceptionally well because of the Twin Towers. So of course, any city in anywhere in the world is going to be perceived as an investor hotspot. But what's very interesting is because Malaysia as a whole is going through a massive regeneration program, Malacca is now a key destination. Because why is that an investor hotspot, or why will it be an investor hotspot? Because they've had the foresight in Malaysia, and probably a little, dare I say it, like our HS2 in UK. You know, you're building a high-speed train, aren't you, between Kuala Lumpur and Singapore. Guess where it stops in the middle? Malacca. So it's equal distance between these two great places. So anywhere where there's good communication, transport links and so on and so forth, of course, will always be an investor hotspot. Anywhere in the world where there's good universities, hospitals and so on and so forth. And Malaysia is renowned for its education and its healthcare as well.
Okay. And in terms of types of property, do you just have the normal range of properties, which are sort of high-rise apartments, individual houses, same?
Like most in Kuala Lumpur, of course, most cities, you do have all the high-rise apartments. But of course, there's a polo club in Kuala Lumpur and a golf club as well. So of course, wherever there's polo, golf and so on and so forth, there's always houses. So there's a real synergy between UK and Malaysia. There's very many similarities really on residences, aren't there?
Okay. Stephanie, the first question I want to ask you really in terms of the technicalities of buying a property, are there any regulations that restrict in any way foreigners buying in Malaysia?
Not really. I think we are very open doors in that sense. Foreigner can buy property very easily in Malaysia. Of course, there is like certain threshold and things, but we welcome investment from foreign investor to purchase property in Malaysia. So for example, in different states, then you will have different threshold, where in Kuala Lumpur, I believe the minimum threshold for property purchase is 1 million ringgit, which is an equivalent to about 200,000 or less than that. And if in Malacca, like we say, another hotspot in Malaysia at the moment, the minimum threshold is 500,000 Malaysia ringgit, which is less than 100,000 pounds.
Really? So it's quite an accessible market then for anybody from the UK. That's very interesting. And in terms of what you're buying, in London here we have leasehold and freehold, which often confuses people who are not from the UK. But anyway, we have the two different systems. Is it similar in Malaysia?
Yes, you won't have any confusion because it's very similar between UK and Malaysia. We have leasehold and freehold as well. And the regulation and all the regulation around this is very similar.
Okay, that's fine. And briefly touched on it earlier, which is the second home program that Malaysia has introduced. That really, unlike us here in the UK, it really does seem to be encouraging purchasing in Malaysia. So that's very good. Can you, just for a couple of minutes, give us an explanation of that scheme?
It's called, like we mentioned before, Stephen, it's called MM2H, Malaysia, My Second Home. Okay. So we really wanted...
Can I suggest you change the name? Because I think it's sounding a little bit like HS2, which is our disastrous railway. But anyway, no, sorry, carry on.
We love foreigners to come to Malaysia to make it really their second home. And for this program, it's a very easy to understand program where it's a 3-tier program. And depends on, you really just need to put a deposit in your own bank account in Malaysia, starting with a minimum offer about 120,000 pounds. And with that, you can actually use some of the money, part of the money, to purchase a property. That explains the name of the program, Malaysia, My Second Home. We really want you to have a home in Malaysia.
Okay, that's very good. So that must make your job a heck of a lot more easy.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, when any investors, especially UK investors, are looking at purchasing any property, whether it be here in UK or overseas, they're going to want to see what's the benefits. Why should I invest here in Malaysia? And as Stephanie said, you know, that initial input in Malaysia for Malaysia, my second home, is not that huge in the scheme of things for what you're actually going to achieve at the end. Because it, as Stephanie said, it's 3 tiers. So initially, the first investment allows a 5-year visa, and then it goes up to 15 years, which is obviously renewable. So they're being very forward thinking. I mean, dare I say this, Stephanie knows what I'm going to say, but I often compare Malaysia to Dubai as Dubai was. So Dubai, as we all know, you know, has a huge story where it's grown incredibly over the last 50 years, and Malaysia is snapping at its heels.
Starting on that journey.
Yeah, by being the heart of Southeast Asia.
Okay, all right, well, thank you for that. That's all we've got time for in this half of the show, so join me again after the break when we'll be looking a little bit more detail about buying in Malaysia.
Hi, this is Rayna Hunter, CEO and Head of Global Sales from LH1 Global, and I'm delighted to be here today in Manchester at the UK International Headquarters for Sheng Tai International. We've had an amazing event here today. We've had a great turnout of not only investment agents who've come to educate themselves and learn more about the product, but we also had some investors here with us today who have now gone away ready to start reserving on this magnificent development. It absolutely is wonderful that we at LH1 Global have partnered with Sheng Tai International to bring this iconic development to market. The Sale Malaysia. It nestles in the heart of Malacca. It is a fabulous opportunity to get in now at the beginning of history in the making.
The Sale in Malacca is going to be one of the landmark projects in Malacca States. I'm very happy about the events we hold today in Manchester, in our Manchester office here. It has been a pleasure and such an opportunity to work with LH1 Global to promote this amazing The Sale development in Malacca to UK.
Hello and welcome back to Spotlight on Malaysia, and don't forget I've been joined by Rayna Hunter, Dato Leong Sir Ley and Dr. Stephanie Teow. Welcome to you all back again. So carrying on with our conversation about buying in Malaysia, what are the financing options? Rayna, I'll probably address this at you first. When we buy in Europe, we usually get told it's better if you finance it in your own country and take the money out to the country that you're financing. Is it the same in Malaysia, or do they have their own funding sources there?
No, it's the same in Malaysia, because Malaysia sort of reflects probably what we do in UK. So you can get lending if you need it in Malaysia through a Malaysian bank. Obviously, in Malaysia, they will still have sort of similar AML, proof of funds, documentation as you would expect.
Oh, for the days of self-certification back again.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. But I think, you see that now that a lot of countries they're encouraging inward bound investment. And so therefore, they're not going to overcomplicate the process, because they want people to come in and enjoy the fruits of that particular country, Malaysia in this instance.
Yes. I mean, I asked the question because in France, for instance, there's quite a strong lobby from the French to lend you money at pretty low rates, really, probably quite a bit less than in this country. But it's never an easy process, is it? Because you have got certification issues from country to country. People are not that keen to swap information. And as you quite rightly say, the purpose of inward investment can do so much for a country. It can finance so much redevelopment and growth in the country. I mean, I just look at Dubai as an example, I suppose, really. So if Malaysia is on that track, they're going to do very well, aren't they?
Well, they are. I think, one of the things that I realised when I went to Malaysia was that there's a huge opportunity there, because I think the Dato was saying earlier that, it is a really good climate. It's not hit by natural disasters because of where it's sort of blanketed by the countries around it. It's right next door to Singapore. Singapore is already at its maximum capacity, isn't it, for properties? They cannot build anymore. So Malaysia is obviously the next area of regeneration, and the currency, the foreign exchange rates are exceptionally good. The currency is strong. The Malaysian government are actually proactive and supporting and encouraging inward bound investment, because they want to sort of see this regeneration.
Sure. Okay. Stephanie, let me ask you a couple of questions about the practicalities of living and buying in Malaysia. First of all, are there any odd taxes that we should be aware of that we're perhaps not used to here but would be applied in Malaysia?
Again, taxes is something that investors shouldn't be worried about in Malaysia, because again, we point to the synergy between UK and Malaysia. It's very, very similar, but only better.
Do you mean less?
Yes.
That's the only better I understand about taxes. Anyway, okay, fine. And what about things like stamp duty, property gains tax on properties? What anything there?
Very similar as well, and especially on the property gain tax, where after 5 years, the property gain tax actually reduced from 30% to 10%.
Right.
So people tend to buy the property, and it's encourage people to invest and hold on to the
And
property
keep it, yeah.
as well. Exactly.
I think that's very clever, and I think that's something we're very behind on in this country. The government wants all these companies and institutions to go into buy to let, so there's more properties to let to people, especially young people. But there's no incentive to do so. They've cut the tax reliefs, and I think holding on to these properties for a long-term investment is the answer. I mean, we can see around the world, the companies that have succeeded are in countries where the government or the authorities have guaranteed interest rates for a period of time, or guaranteed facilities for long term. I mean, Japan is particularly clever at that. And it allows their companies to go into international markets. And that's the attraction here. Now, listen, I'm a guy, I like my cars. So unlike Singapore, can I buy a car in Malaysia?
You can buy any car in Malaysia, Stephen, and also the benefits of using a car in Malaysia. Can I ask you a question, Stephen? How much do you pay for a litre of fuel in UK at the moment?
Do you know, I've got, well, I had an electric car, so I don't know.
Oh,
very nice.
Well, funnily enough, I just sold it and I bought a petrol one again now. It's less trouble, but anyway.
As far as I know, it's around £1.40.
Probably, yeah.
And make a guess, how much does fuel cost in Malaysia per litre? Exactly the same.
No idea.
34 pence.
Oops, right.
So
You're almost on a par with the States, aren't you, really?
Yes.
Yeah. And what about taxes on new cars? Do you pay a heavy import tax on luxury cars, for instance?
On certain imported cars, yes, some tax on it. But again, Malaysia have our own manufacturing cars and brands as well, and they are amazing cars. So these are cars that a lot of investors, they will be looking into when they come to Malaysia. When you are in a local market, try the local brands.
Okay, well, that's good advice. Okay, Rayna, coming back to you on the purchase procedure, how do you find the legal fees and other sort of incidental transactional costs in Malaysia?
yeah, I think they're again on a par with UK because, you know, as we've noticed very much, we've studied contracts and things in Malaysia, and we can see that the legal process and fee structure is very similar to UK. In fact, maybe actually slightly more affordable, because I've noticed, unfortunately, in the UK at the moment, everything is inflating and legal fees are obviously inflating. So Malaysia is generally very affordable. I mean, you were talking about cars. Well, petroleum is a natural resource of Malaysia. So if the cost of living is less in Malaysia to UK, then obviously it's natural that the legal fees and so on and so forth are reflective of that.
Okay. And inflation rates in Malaysia? I mean, I'm just thinking if somebody retires there, inflation is quite an important consideration, isn't it?
Inflation rate is around 3%. Even during the pandemic season, the pandemic times,
Yeah.
we managed to hold the inflation around not more than 3%. I think our government has been doing a very good job on doing that.
They're doing something right, aren't they?
Yeah, I think maybe we might need to speak to some people in the UK government. Maybe they should come and visit Malaysia themselves and get some handy tips, I think.
I'm
Dato,
sure,
you better invite them over.
I was going to say, I'm sure Dato Leong would only too keen to invite them over. Okay, great. Dato, I'd like you to just give us an insight. You're a very significant property developer. We have this fixation at the moment of looking at our green credentials and sustainability. I know this is something that Malaysia is very keen on. are you incorporating all these new ingenious methods of staying green into your developments?
Yes, of course. We do have all these things in our hotels and also in our developments, promoting greeneries. And also we wanted to get more, to be more atmosphere friendly. Yeah. And our waste system, all this will be protecting the environment. This is what we're doing at the moment.
Good. Okay. And from your own personal point of view, I know you're very keen on this synergy between the two countries, between the UK and Malaysia. Tell us a little bit about your history.
I've got my law degree from London.
Right.
So I've been here for a few years and I went back to Malaysia. And there are awesome professors from London who has been traveling from Malaysia to London and vice versa. So they have been helping Malaysia on the education. And there's a lot of international school nowadays whereby a lot of British professors are there to guide the students. Yes, to achieve more achievements. And like twinning system is better now. So what we are doing here, the development that I'm doing, is not only on the property construction and development only, but it's also making the world smaller, that people can just choose which country they want to go. And of course, Malaysia is one of the good country, and because we achieved our independence in 1957, so we have a lot of synergy there, especially the legal system and the environment is all the same.
If you carry on, I think we'll be booking our flights. I think we'll be moving. Okay, ladies, well, thank you all very much. I think just for the last couple of minutes of the show, if I could start with you, Stephanie, one strong tip for a purchaser, what would you give as advice?
Just come to Malaysia, because seeing it is believing it.
Okay.
You pinched my line.
So come on, Rayna, you'll have to think quick.
Well, I was actually going to say the same thing, because having visited Malaysia, I think if you touch and feel the product, and obviously the fact that, you know, the currency rates are so good, now is the time to invest, because the ringgit is low and you're going to see huge capital growth during the regeneration of Malaysia.
Okay. And Dato Leong, what would your advice be to anybody wanting to buy?
I would say that since the world is getting smaller, we should closen up the relationship more. And there's a lot of business opportunity now growing between Malaysia and UK. And we have to move fast, as everything is fast in this era. And my thinking is, I always emphasize on something called property tourism.
Okay.
Yes, if you want to sell your property, it's always to show the best place of this place. And if people love the place, love the food, love the lifestyle, then the property is sold.
Yes. Well, I think you agree with me when we were talking off camera. I said it's very difficult, actually. And I don't think it's possible to actually sell a property. What you do is sell an idea, you sell an environment, you sell a way of life. And you can, as an agent, for instance, you can make a lot of that comfortable for the buyer, but you can't actually sell. As you said, seeing is believing, isn't it?
Yes.
And on that optimistic note, we'll close the show. I'm going to say thank you to my guests for coming in today. It's really informative. Thank you all very much indeed. I'm Stephen Galpin. Join me again next time on our Spotlight series.